So as HR leaders, we want employees to be satisfied with their work experiences. And many of us lean on employee engagement data to inform what those strategies could be. Join us in this interesting conversation on employee experience and engagement, myth versus reality. Welcoming our panel for the discussion, Manish Menda, Head of Human Resources, India NatWest Group, Karthik Nagaraj, Vice President Enterprise Solutions at Edcast, Usha Singh, Director HR MOIL, and our moderator for the session, Aditya Kohli, CHRO Clicks Capital. All over to you, Aditya, for this interesting discussion.
Hi, Nidhi. Thank you so much. And really excited to be here. So today we've got a very interesting topic for discussion, and we've got some very eminent professionals who provide a lot of context in the specific area. So without further ado, what I would want to do is, maybe start by giving a little bit of context into the pillars that we will debate and discuss a little bit further. Right. So let me start by visualizing three broad blocks. One, which is culture. Second, which is employee experience. And the third, which is engagement. Now, when you look at culture, culture is basically, simply put, it's a set of norms, guiding beliefs, and understandings that is shared within the members of an organization. Or a little bit more simply put, it is basically how people in an organization behave when no one's watching, right? So that's culture. Experience is basically the set of interactions that an employee has within the organization. So you can actually talk about experience as the sum of perceptions and interactions within an organization, right? And that's also it also kind of boils down to the culture of the organization, which drives the experience. And finally, the third block, which is employee engagement. And employee engagement, this is something that I read long time back, which was that an engaged employee says three things, right? He stays in the organization, he talks actively about the organization, and he gives discretionary effort to the organization. But if you simplify that, engagement is basically an employee's emotional response to the experience that he's having in the organization. So again, three big blocks: culture, experience, and engagement. And today, we've got Manish, Karthik, and Usha, where we are going to be discussing a lot more in terms of these interactions and the measurement of these interactions, and how we can actually learn from them and see how we can apply it to our own companies as such. So before I get into the conversation with our panel, can I request the audience poll on the first question, please? And as we are looking at the question and seeing how everybody responds to it, maybe I can start by saying, asking about the first bit of the conversation in terms of Manish, Usha, and Karthik. What are some of the things that you are doing in your organizations in terms of employee engagement and experience? That would be very interesting for all of us. Maybe I can start with Karthik. Karthik, why don't you go first?
Sure, thanks, Aditya. I think, it's now more than a year since we all started working from home. And with emergence of new hotspots in India, there is a realization that work from home or work from anywhere is here to stay. And one will have to embrace it with or without choice, right? While the focus remains on safety and well-being of employees, many organizations have pivoted to designing hybrid models, which is a collaboration between human and machines, right? And Edcast itself is a world leader in the talent experience space, and best-in-class G2000 companies partner with us to offer this very experience. So, interestingly, we did a study covering over 100 organizations across India, And what is evident from that study is organization maintaining a very sharp focus on offering personalized learning experience, right? So providing skilling opportunities and career advancement, are clear trends that we are increasingly seeing. And these are two levels that we are also being discussed to amplify or accelerate, employee experience or employee engagement. And I think that's my initial view.
No, I think, thank you. Actually, as we are still progressing on the poll, but the number one driver for employee experience seems learning and growth. So obviously, Karthik, you are in the right business. I must say that.
Bang on.
Manish, let me go to you. What are your views? What are you guys doing differently as a bank which is global and spread across multiple locations, time zones?
So thanks, Aditya. Hope those of you who are hearing us are staying safe and at home in these difficult times. I think like probably Karthik mentioned, we've been also kind of working virtually for the past 1 year. I think from an employee listening standpoint, we've been working on an ongoing strategy. So instead of the normal annual surveys that we run to measure employee engagement, the current approach that we've adopted is to listen more often and listen more frequently because things are evolving as we kind of go through this journey together. So we've been running a lot of pulse surveys, getting feedback from colleagues on how they are feeling engaged and connected to the organization. And a couple of things that I would call out from an employee experience and engagement standpoint that really stand out are, one, we've seen significant uptake in use of technology, i.e. chatbots. So in the past, where colleagues were wanting to experience anything with HR, it was through a chat or an email. They would not probably prefer to actually kind of do anything through the bot. But we've seen a huge uptake on the uptake of the bot usage now in HR, where colleagues are very comfortable dealing with the bot 24/7 to get their queries resolved. And I think the other interesting piece of work that we've been doing is actually starting to look at our process maps through the colleague lens. I keep colleague experience at the heart of what we do and work through a process map that captures how the colleague experience the process and not how we experience process as we run it. So those were the two quick insights that I wanted to share, Aditya, as we start getting into the discussion. Back to you.
Thanks, Manish. Usha, you come from a very interesting space, which is large, which is diverse, which is spread out, and it's a public sector kind of an organization. And the insights that you draw on and the group of people that you interact with, does that experience and engagement approach change for you?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I have more than 30 years of experience in large organizations of public sectors, such as Steel Authority, NMDC, and now it's MOI. So public sectors, there is a myth around public sectors when we talk of that in public sectors, our jobs are secure. There is very little scope for differentiation between two employees. So the kind of increment what you can give to an employee will be fixed. So there is little scope for differentiation. But I think it's a myth, because the kind of differentiation you would see that the same batch, one person will be much below or a middle level person, whereas his batchmate or her batchmate will be at the CEO level, the CMD level. So this kind of differentiation is possible within the same system. And just 2 or 3 important tools, what comes handy and which I have been using is certainly 1, 2, 3 things I would like to speak. One is the group task and targets. So other than the individual task and target, you have group task and target, say for in this organization, the current organization, that's challenging 12, 13, 14 assignments which have to be passed through the board. Now, these are some driving force for the entire personnel team, and which galvanizes the entire team to fulfill it during the year. And if we don't achieve that, the annual in PRP, which is the incentive bonus, you can say, for the officers, that also gets affected. So that is something which, galvanizes the whole entire department and the pride what you can take in achieving that. And then second thing is training and development. Certainly, if we have in public sector, the kind of investment what we make, and because the lifetime employment concept still continues here in most of the employees. So we can send our employees we can invest from one program lakhs of rupees, because that is capability building for the individual, and also giving a big differentiation for them that they have been chosen for this program. And thirdly, you talked of culture, and I must say that, personally, I really invest high on this organization culture building, in the sense like, you have small groups who meet on how we can improve the happiness quotient. So, if we make each other feel good while we are in office, the entire organization bit by bit and the department by department, section by section becomes a happier place to work. So this is something we talk about.
Thanks, Usha. I think, maybe a little bit of a summarizing before we dive into the myths and realities. I can see a couple of themes that have come out from this quick conversation that we did, right? We can see multiple technology platforms and non-technology platforms being used to either measure or drive engagement, be it either learning or a bot. So you're seeing multiple platforms, but I'm also kind of noticing something else, that there's almost layers of maturity that an organization has as it comes to measuring engagement. You have maybe right at the bottom is an organization running the engagement for the first time. There's no process, there's no standard. You don't look at your colleagues' engagement. You're looking at it very internally, and then you go to the next step, which is where it becomes a lot more repeatable in its nature. So there's a rhythm behind it, there's a repeatability behind it, and then you go to the next step where you have defined processes, defined tools to sharpen up how you run the engagement process. The ownership at this level starts shifting outside of HR and more towards the leadership of the organization. And maybe the highest level is where you have systems and processes and leadership, which is focusing on not only managing, but optimizing the whole information as well as actions coming out. And I think in engagement, the most important thing, apart from measuring it, is ownership and action, right? And I think that's what's coming through very heavily in the conversation between the three of you. Maybe as we go into the second part of our discussion in terms of looking at the myths and realities, can I request for the second question to be rolled out to the audience, please? And as that is happening, maybe I can ask Usha to kind of pick up on this question. As we all know, all of us, or most of us, have been working virtually in one form or the other. And with the COVID cases going, last 2 weeks has been relentless. Usha, when you look at it, there is a myth, or there is a thinking that you can't drive employee experience and engagement in a virtual environment. You need a fancy office, you need infrastructure and all of that. What is your view on that?
Certainly, this is a myth, because the human relationship, that certainly has to be maintained, and that is why there is more responsibility. But without this, the employee experience and employee engagement cannot be achieved. The way it will not help the organization culture. In the sense like, see, if a pat on the back is certainly not possible if we are staying away from one another. But then, one-to-one discussions when it is required, we get, as the HR director, I get to know that there has been some pressing issue, and there has been rift between the two sections or the two departments or the two functions. And then as the boss, you need to take that the initiative to get in touch. And certainly you have to deal with this. And that actually makes the entire thing, the virtual thing also is basically, there's no difference at all. Their irresponsibility is as high. And rather in this COVID-19 environment, I think, the humane approach of the management becomes even more important. Earlier when there was someone was down with fever, I would not have talked to that person. But in these times, when anyone in the family of my employee here, I make it a point to be in touch with that employee, and the kind of the ownership for the organization and for the entire management, the way it grows in the amongst the employees, there is no substitute.
Thanks, Usha. I think the point that you're making, that in a virtual environment, compassion, empathy, connect becomes so much more important. Absolutely. Karthik, what's your view on this?
Well, see, I think no doubt, right? The rules of workspace has undergone a 360-degree change since the pandemic broke. Now, engagement playbooks are being redefined, rewritten to suit the new conditions. Now, I can recall one of our banking clients in India getting their highest NPS scores for their onboarding program. And this program was actually kicked off in the very same week the country slipped into a lockdown. So you can imagine welcoming like 150 plus graduates from across premium business schools, virtually, and keeping them engaged for a 12 full weeks, right? I mean, so they managed to rewrite, which otherwise was increasingly seen as a fragmented onboard experience, into a fine blend that perfectly suited the virtual world, right? By converting that very adversity into an opportunity. Now, it is still fresh in my mind, because a week before we were just talking about it, and the HR head said, listen, we can't even ship our laptops to these employees because there is no way we can do that. And for the first time in the bank's history, they had to allow bringing their own devices for the onboarding. So I think kudos to the bank, and we certainly don't want to take all the credit from them. But then they certainly changed this adversity into an opportunity. So I think we can certainly improve engagement scores virtually. I think it doesn't matter.
So basically, what both of you are saying is it's a myth. Organization can do a lot in terms of experience and engagement as they operate virtually. And I don't know, Manish, was that your bank we were talking about, where we were?
Not really. So I think there is a bit of reality also. So there are things that we potentially can't do in a virtual environment, right? We could have probably team events, getting the team together and having some celebrations, and probably just that whole being together socially in one office or one environment, and probably doing something in your cafeteria or in a breakout area is not that possible anymore. But I would say there are alternatives. For example, we this week just launched the IPL context, where we know cricket is a religion here and people do follow a lot of cricket here. So we said, okay, let's get people excited. Let's guess the team that wins today, who will win the purple cap, who will win the orange cap, which is the team that will be the winner. So there is some excitement you can create virtually by getting people connected on various contests and events, and have some fun also, right? We're also doing talent competitions where people can upload videos and then people can vote around the performance that they like the most. And we're also getting kids engaged through this process. So there are various ways you can use technology and virtual platforms to do that. But I would rather say that I'm somewhere in middle, wherein there is a bit of myth and there is reality also, wherein you will have a bit of a challenge doing that level of employee engagement like we used to do where you were in the office environment, because we are social animals and we would love to be in office.
So I think, Manish, I wouldn't disagree with you, right? But I think the role of the office would change from getting people to do work to becoming more of a social setup. So you may end up having a situation where you may have beer bars and coffee bars and food joints in the office, which is used to kind of get people in to have a quick chat and collaborate, but work actually gets done home. All right. I think moving on to, so I'm going to say this is a myth with a few believing it could also be real, right? So I'll 2 out of 3. Actually, 1 out of 4, or 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4. I'm also very firmly in the side that you can do a lot virtually on driving experience and engagement. We just have to think out of the box a lot more. All right, the next myth that I wanted to kind of pick up on, and the audience has almost kind of given us their view on this, right? So technology will make organization less human and reduce engagement. Karthik, what is, coming from a technology first organization, what's your view on this? Though the audience has overwhelmingly said technology enables us to be more human. So anyways, over to you, Karthik.
Thanks, Aditya. A very interesting question indeed. And see, tech is always considered an ally, an enabler, right? It has helped human race evolve, plus achieve high degree of efficiency and productivity. Now, the beauty is, it helps us scale faster, offer standardized experience, besides many other things, right? So I think to me, the key here is number one, classify clearly what can and should be tech enabled and what should remain a human experience, right? And particularly so in testing times like this. And number two, one should blend high tech with human touch to certainly draw the best from both worlds, right? Like I got one of our IT customers, a global organization with about 60,000 people are, clearly using, skilling and career mobility as two key drivers to accelerate and amplify employee engagement. But more importantly, they're helping, some of the conversations, right? Like people not being treated as a resource, but as a human, being authentic, being consistent, or even, those are some of the leadership challenges that they're trying to address. And that has a very human story to it, right? So I think, to me, so long as we know clearly how to classify them and take the best of both the worlds, I think, to me, it's a science as well as an art.
Manish, you guys are doing a lot in terms of using technology and touching people differently. How does that? What are your views on this topic?
So I'll probably largely be aligned to what Karthik said. For me, I think technology has been an enabler, right? And without technology, honestly, it would have been near to impossible to stay connected with employees. Now, be this platform, like we are now connected on Zoom, and we are virtually reaching out to participants in the session. Similarly, I think using these platforms are definitely important, but I don't think the human touch is actually going away. I think you made a very valid point, Aditya, when we started around the whole compassion and care bit. And even Usha said that, we kind of now reach out a lot more if we come to know somebody's unwell. That whole care, compassion bit has actually gone different level this last 1 year, in my view. I think when people genuinely ask you, how are you doing? It's not about saying hi to you. It's genuinely asking you, are you kind of okay now? Are you kind of under any stress or anxiety and so on? And we are seeing increased levels of anxiety and stress due to the pandemic. So I think the human touch is actually going to grow further, and technology will be just a medium that you use to connect. So instead of sitting in person, you might use a Zoom video to connect with people. But I personally think it's definitely here to stay, and it will be further a big requirement for all managers to be able to actually identify signs of stress, anxiety, and people feeling low, because that's going to be really important.
No, I think absolutely right. I think the focus on health, focus on well-being has taken a different level within the organization. I was reading a very interesting survey by one of the survey providers, where actually Q2, Q3 during the pandemic, engagement levels across the organization jumped up. While we were going through the worst of the pandemic, we saw the engagement levels jump up. And I think it is potentially everybody making a concerted effort of knowing people a little bit more, connecting a little bit more, because everybody's going through the same degree of struggle. And honestly, you I can talk about myself. I think my connection with the team has kind of grown up. I know how they look when they wake up first thing in the morning, how they look in the middle of the day, how they look at the end of the day, and in different forms of dress and undress also, right? So because Zoom is just, or Zoom and WebEx and others have just become such a norm for connecting so much. So I think absolutely.
But I just wanted to add one point here that technology is also an enabler, because the routine jobs which are not like being done by employees. Say if you have to, for example, in HR, the scrutiny of applications which come and all. So once it is given to technology, when we take help of that, then things become so much. You have better quality of jobs to be assigned to the human beings who are working in our team.
Absolutely, completely. I think we've got a few questions. Let's kind of get into the questions. For this myth, I would say technology makes you more connected is definitely a reality. It is making you more connected. And now diving into the questions, how do we ensure organization culture in the virtual reality? So it's a good question. How do we kind of make sure that organizations are driving culture when most of you are working remotely in a virtual world? How do you drive organization culture? Because many times organization cultures were placard stories and how the organization looked like, and the stable was because somebody did this out here. So those stories and narratives and artifacts which drive the culture are no longer relevant. You're kind of confined to your own study or your own room. So how do you drive culture?
But the feel what you have, the feeling what you have to be the part of the organization, that certainly remains. The way you are being treated, the way the quality of job what you have, the way that relationships remain, and that feeling remain. The overall experience, you look upon your organization with more of expectation, and when it comes true in these difficult times, the engagement and motivation certainly is higher.
I think that's a very good way of saying it, Usha. Maybe let's go to the next question. How do you measure engagement outside of surveys? Are you getting good feedback from surveys? Manish, why don't you have a go at this one?
Yeah, I can. Yeah. So I think outside of surveys that we run, we do get feedback through every interaction we have with colleagues. So if you raise a query with HR and you get a response to that query, or you use a chatbot and you get your response with chatbot, so we do ask you whether you found this useful or whether the interaction was positive. Similarly, when you're joining the organization, your new joiner experience is measured. When you're leaving the organization, your exit experience is measured. So I think it's about measuring employee experience at every touch point with the employee. It can't be confined to an annual or a biannual survey. It has to be every time you're touching the life of a colleague. You should seek feedback wherever appropriate, and that feedback then needs to be probably taken into account for any improvements that you're doing on an ongoing basis. So that's probably the way I would kind of respond to that question.
And maybe I'll add to it, Manish. I think what tends to also happen is there's a lot of survey fatigue also that comes in. So while you're running the surveys, it's important to run the surveys, but you also can use focus groups and other methods of collecting information, which probably is as valid and gives you a lot more context to the qualitative data that you have. All right, moving into the next question. Does employee engagement help in managing work-life balance? I'm going to leave it open. Who wants to kind of jump in and answer this one?
I think, managing work-life and employee engagement both have relationship. If you are a happy employee, you are happier at home, and vice versa is true.
I think good answer. I think engagement is all about discretionary effort. And, if somebody is highly engaged, work life becomes more about the balancing act rather than a issue.
I think just one build on that one, Aditya. I think the bit that we need to keep in mind, and I get a lot of these colleagues who tend to probably put in extra hours, and I tell them probably you shouldn't. And I've got friends who actually put in extra hours than what they should. And the one thing they call out is, oh, I'm very passionate about my work and my organization. I really love working and I really enjoy doing what I need to do. And honestly, during this work from home, there's nothing much productive I could do any which way. So I love to work long hours. But keep in mind, then the battle is not between engagement and work-life balance. The battle is between your wellness and your work-life balance. So you need to keep in mind that you are compromising on your mental and physical wellness significantly if you continue doing long hours just because you love your organization and you love working and continue to do what you do for long hours.
And that's right. You know, I think we are also seeing a lot of organizations focus on not only work but wellness equally, right? Because at the end of the day, a happy, engaged, healthy employee is a productive employee for an organization. That's what they would strive to drive at completely. You know, I'm concerned that we are almost out of time. Maybe we can stop now. And any last comments and thoughts from Manish, you, and then maybe Karthik and then Usha?
So maybe, Aditya, if I could just kind of summarize the discussion and the way we've taken it, I think the way we seek employee feedback has changed over the last 1 year and will continue to evolve in my view. And like we said, we shouldn't be looking at just the surveys, just because not only the survey fatigue, but also there is a need to get ongoing feedback from colleagues. But from a colleague experience standpoint, I think we have to utilize and leverage on the current environment and make the most of it. So in the past, in the office environment, when we had the best of technology also, we were always against a lot of paperless transactions. So we used to ask colleagues to write down claim forms, sign claim forms, and send the claim forms physically to locations for processing. But in the virtual environment, we know everything is now being done virtually with, all scanned documents going for processing. So I think as a function, HR and also organizations need to adopt the best things of working virtually and continue to adopt that as we get into the new ways of working. That would be just my kind of parting comment.
Thanks, Manish. Usha, maybe last words. We've got 30 seconds with us.
So I think, to summarize, the challenges have grown and so have the responsibilities. But at the same time, the employee experience, employee engagement remains as relevant as earlier. Rather, I would say it has grown more. The challenges have grown, and so these factors have also become more important in these trying times.
Thank you. There's a beautiful quote by Winston Churchill, right? Never let a good crisis go to waste. And I think
yes,
it's a calling card for all HR professionals and leaders within the organization to go for it. All right. I think we are out of time. So thank you so much. And thank you for really insightful conversations.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Aditya. Thanks, Usha.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Karthik. And thank you, Aditya.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was wonderful to have you guys with us. Definitely a fresh perspective on employee engagement here. With that, for our audience, please stay tuned. We have our main hall session starting. We'll be right back. Thank you so much.